Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take complex laws, big reports, you name it, and we boil them down to what you really need to know. Today, we're tackling a really significant piece of South African legislation, the Public Administration Management Act. You'll hear it called PEMA, Act 11 of 2014. Now, this isn't just some dry legal document. PEMA is fundamentally about how government runs, how it should run, across every single level. Our mission today, to give you the essentials of this major reform, quick, clear, useful, whether you're just someone wondering about service delivery issues or maybe you're a law student needing the key points on governance, we're aiming to get right to the heart of it.
Yeah, and it's crucial right from the start to understand just how wide PEMA's reach is. It's not just for the national public service, as many might think. It covers the whole public administration. That means national departments, sure, but also provincial governments, and significantly local government too. Every single municipality, its staff, they're all covered by PEMA.
So uniformity is a big goal here.
Exactly. That drive for a single set of standards across the board is really central to the whole act. And a bit of context on timing is important too. It was signed into law back in 2014, yes, but most of the key parts didn't actually kick in until April 2019. And even then, some specific sections, things dealing with, individual staff transfers, financial disclosures, those have been rolled out more gradually. So it's a reform that's been implemented, let's say, in phases, still unfolding in a way.
Okay, let's talk about the why. The Act itself, in the object section, it lays out some pretty big ambitions. What's the fundamental purpose here? What constitutional ideas is it trying to bring to life?
Well, it's really about giving teeth to those core values you find in Section 195 of the Constitution. Things we talk about a lot: efficiency, professionalism, being accountable. But the Act's preamble, it spells out the constitutional need quite clearly. It recognizes that we have these three spheres of government: national, provincial, local. And it uses that specific wording. They're distinctive, interdependent, and interrelated.
That phrase, interdependent and interrelated, seems really important. Why the need for one single act to govern all of them together like this?
Because fundamentally, PMA is trying to tackle that historical problem of fragmentation and the deep issue of inequality. The Act is quite explicit. The big challenge is overcoming poverty, marginalization, the legacy of apartheid. And you can't really deliver services effectively, accountably, which is how you address those legacies, if every sphere, every municipality is working in completely different rules, different ethics, different levels of capacity.
Right. So PEMA steps in to say, here's the baseline.
Precisely. It sets a kind of non-negotiable minimum standard. Professional conduct, ethical behavior. This applies everywhere. Every state institution, big or small, national or local.
Okay, let's look at that baseline. Chapter 2 lists basic values and principles. If I'm working anywhere in public administration, what are these core mandates PEMA sets out? I think there are 9 specific ones.
Yeah, there are 9, and they are foundational. Every institution, that's every department or municipality, must promote high ethical standards. They need to be development-oriented. Critically, services must be impartial, fair, unbiased. And for the public, transparency is key, getting information that's timely, accessible, and accurate. It's really about building trust through actions, not just, policy documents.
And it also gets into the HR side, right? It seems like PEMA directly links human resources management to fixing past inequalities.
That's a really important point. Yes, it mandates good HR practices, career development, all of that. But the final point in that Chapter 2 list is very specific. It says, these HR practices must aim to redress past imbalances to achieve broad representation. So HR isn't just admin, it's an active tool for transformation, guided by fairness and merit, of course.
Okay, so we've got the standards, the ethical bar PEMA sets. But just setting a standard doesn't mean it happens automatically. Enforcement is key. What does PEMA actually create to make sure these values stick?
Right, this is where the Act really gets its teeth, moving beyond just stating principles. It set up 2 completely new oversight bodies. First, in Chapter 6, you have what's called the unit.
It's a unit.
Yes, the Public Administration Ethics, Integrity, and Disciplinary Technical Assistance Unit. Bit of a mouthful. Its main job is support and building capacity. It helps all 3 spheres, national, provincial, local, with ethics advice, integrity issues, how to handle disciplinary matters correctly. But here's the big change. If an institution finds corruption, like actual criminal corruption, they have to report it straight to the police. Immediately.
Wow, okay.
And then any misconduct issues that come out of that police investigation, those must be reported back to this unit. It forces a direct link between internal processes and the criminal justice system.
That's a huge step, linking HR, essentially, with the SAPS. But let me push back a bit here. If an institution is already struggling with corruption, is technical assistance from this unit really enough? Isn't there a risk it relies too much on potentially compromised managers cooperating?
That's a valid tension, absolutely. And perhaps that's why PMA didn't stop there. It created a second body, one that's more focused on, let's say, prevention and checking up, rather than just reacting after something goes wrong. And that's the Office of Standards and Compliance. This one's in Chapter 8.
Okay, so the unit advises, the office monitors.
Exactly. The minister sets the minimum standards for how things should run, and the office's job is to check if institutions are actually meeting them. It's designed to be proactive. It can conduct audits on capacity, on how well departments are functioning, and crucially, it's meant to develop an early warning system.
An early warning system.
Yeah, to spot signs of non-compliance, systemic problems, before they become massive failures or huge corruption scandals. So one body is supportive, disciplinary, that's the unit. The other is diagnostic, preventative, that's the office.
Right, got it. Let's switch gears a bit to the people working within the system. Chapter 3 talks about employment conditions. This covers pretty much everyone appointed in public administration, right? Except maybe some specific political advisors.
That's broadly correct, yes. It defines employee quite widely. And Chapter 3 deals with practical things, like moving staff around transfers and secondments.
So how does PAMA regulate that movement?
It puts up some clear guardrails, mainly to protect the employee. Section 5 says if you're transferring an individual, there have to be reasonable grounds for it. The person needs to be qualified for the new role. And, importantly, you generally need their written consent.
Why the consent part? Is that common?
It's there to prevent transfers being used unfairly, like a hidden punishment or a way to sideline someone. PAMA is very clear. The transferred employee can't have their pay or conditions reduced without their agreement. It ensures their employment continuity is protected, even while allowing for administrative needs.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, this same chapter, Chapter 3, gets into something really critical for public trust, conflicts of interest. Sections 8 and 9 seem to lay down some very strict rules.
They absolutely do. This is arguably one of the most potent parts of PAMA for tackling corruption head-on. The rule is blunt. An employee cannot do business with the state, period. Directly or indirectly. Both. They can't conduct business themselves, and they can't be a director of any company, public or private, that does business with the state.
And if someone breaks this rule, it's not just getting fired, is it? It sounds like it goes much further.
Much further. Breaking this rule is defined, firstly, as serious misconduct grounds for dismissal. But, and this is the kicker, P. Barano also makes it a criminal offense.
Criminal, really?
Yes, liable to a fine or imprisonment for up to 5 years or potentially both. It elevates doing business with the state while employed by it from just an internal HR issue to a serious crime. It shows just how seriously the law views that integrity breach.
And it's not just about what the employee owns or does. The disclosure requirements are pretty broad, aren't they? They reach into the family.
They do. The Act mandates disclosure of financial interests, not just for the employee, but also for their spouse and their life partner.
What kind of interests are we talking about?
It covers a wide range: shares, sponsorships, any gifts over a certain value, other benefits, land, property. Basically, anything that could potentially create a conflict needs to be declared. The idea is to force transparency on private financial dealings that might overlap with public duties, get it out in the open before it becomes a problem. And failing to disclose, that itself is misconduct.
Okay, shifting focus slightly again. PNA isn't just about stopping bad behavior, it's also about building future capability. Chapters 4 and 5 look at modernization, capacity building. What's the mandate around training?
Chapter 4 puts a clear duty on the head of every single institution, department, municipality, whatever, to actively develop their staff, through education, through training. The goal stated is to make sure people can do their jobs efficiently, accountably, and deliver quality services. It means institutions have to budget and plan properly for staff development. It's not optional.
And part of this involves formalizing the National School of Government, the NSG.
Yes, exactly. PEMA formally establishes the NSG as a higher education institution. Its specific job is to improve the quality and impact of HR development across the whole public sector and to actively promote those core public administration values we talked about earlier. It sort of centralizes and standardizes the approach to training.
And the minister can actually make certain training compulsory for specific jobs.
Yes, Section 13 gives the minister that power, but it requires cabinet approval first. They can declare that successfully completing certain training or education is a requirement for getting certain jobs, or even for being transferred into them.
So you couldn't appoint someone to a highly technical role, for instance, unless they've passed the required course.
Precisely. It's a way to guarantee a minimum level of proven competence for critical positions, fighting against unqualified appointments that ultimately hurt service delivery. It drives professionalism.
Right. And finally, let's touch on Chapter 5. This seems to be about dragging government operations into the modern era, focusing on information and communication technologies, ICT. What are the main rules there?
This chapter tackles the old problem of government departments working in digital isolation, often inefficiently. PMA requires institutions to use ICT strategically. Key requirements include acquiring tech in ways that achieve economies of scale, so stopping lots of separate, expensive purchases. Systems need to be interoperable.
Meaning they have to be able to talk to each other, share data.
Yes, exactly. To improve efficiency, get rid of duplication. No more situations where one department system can't share information with another's. It's also about security, naturally. But the overall aim is stated clearly. Use ICT to improve service delivery and make it easier for the public to access services. Digital strategy becomes a legal requirement supporting those PMA values of efficiency and access.
So pulling it all together, it's clear PAMA isn't just a minor update. It's this huge, sweeping law trying to bind all levels of government, national, provincial, local, to the same high standards, from how staff are managed to fighting corruption, even to how they use technology.
That really is the core message. PMA creates the actual machinery. The unit, the office, the NSG, that the Constitution implies is needed to make accountability real, not just an ideal. And in doing so, it cleaned up the legislative landscape, repealing older, fragmented laws about staff transfers and amending the Public Service Act itself. It's meant to be the single unifying framework for public administration reform in South Africa. Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to ponder. PMA imposes incredibly strict penalties, like potential jail time, for employees doing business with the state, all in the name of achieving this national uniformity and integrity. So the question is, how does the Act manage the balance? How does it reconcile this strong, centralized enforcement, especially on corruption, with the constitutional principle that provinces and municipalities should still have the power to manage their own affairs, structure their own administrations? It highlights that ongoing tension, doesn't it, between national standards and local autonomy, between top-down enforcement and building capacity from the ground up.